I think we are ready.
Okay.
I believe
Are
we
you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Rohit, you ready?
Coffee's
go.
in, ready to roll.
All right.
Warm me up.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another week of the Weekly Jargon. I'm here, Abel Perez.
Jose Rodriguez.
Rohi Zachariah.
All right, gentlemen, glad to see you again. You're back.
We're back.
The conversations haven't been too intense because we keep coming back, right? We're still giggling and, being cordial. So anyway, really enjoying what we got going on here. Thank you guys for the responses. I see some great comments out there, some likes, some shares, and it's all, we're feeling the love.
Continue to subscribe.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, Jose, what do we got going on today?
Well, today we got a 3 set of questions that are pretty hot, and I think we're gonna pick them from the jar. And Rohi, if you like to take one out, see what the topic is gonna be today.
All right.
This is actually just a mystery topic today. Let's see what we got. We just wrote down the questions that were out there and we put them on.
Okay. Does money bring happiness?
That's a good
Does
topic.
money bring happiness? So on our community page on the YouTube channel, we had put out a survey with 3 questions on there. And so within those 3 questions, they were all in the jar, and we decided to blind draw them. And here we are. Does money bring happiness? So let's do it a little bit differently today. We're going to go around the corner or around the horn. And just a quick yes or no, and then we'll spend the remainder of the time supporting our answers and discussing the topic, right? So, Jose, hindsight, when you hear that, do you think yes or do you gravitate towards no?
In today's world, yes. Yes. Money does bring you happiness.
I will sadly say yes on this one.
Yeah.
So.
I want to be the devil's advocate and say no, but it's very difficult to do that, right? And so I'm almost a yes as well. But I'm gonna go up against you guys today.
Almost, what does that mean? Almost a yes.
I'm almost a yes. I want to say yes because there are a lot of scenarios that I could think of, but let's dive into it, right? Obviously, I think right now what's really making it difficult for me to answer is you have your moral foundations, growing up where, money is not in abundance, right? You're told, money doesn't bring happiness. And it's almost like a hang in there, it's okay sort of thing, right? And also from, a religious standpoint where it's, money isn't everything, right? There are other things more important, and you'll have longer longevity in life, and a more fulfilling life if you focus on other things outside of money, right? And so that's the stance I'm going to take today, and I'm going to play off you guys. We'll see how it comes.
Interesting. Well, I'll take a stab at it. I think that because America is a capitalistic nation, I think this is why people strive to come to America, is because they want to be ambitious. They want to be able to strive to put their families in a better place. So money certainly is a mechanism to get there, right? And is it equate to happiness? Well, it equates to survival. It equates to, hey, I don't have to worry about food, and not that we don't have that problem here. We certainly have a huge problem, especially with homelessness. But for the most part, Americans want to strive to get better, right? Put themselves in a better position, their family. And I want to say that certainly brings a sense of happiness to a certain degree, right? So that's going to be my take on that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more, but we can spark up some conversation over it. And we'll let our colleague here, Rohi.
Sure. So I look at it, I think looking at it in deeper, it's not just money. It's having a sense of what that money brings and what you can do with it. We were talking with a guy, and he had just won a $2 million lawsuit, and we were kind of poking at him a little bit because he was obviously very excited. He just won $2 million, and then we were like, okay, well, guess what? 50% of that's gone, so now you're already you're getting $1 million post tax, and then they were kind of saying, well, yeah, it sounds great, but somebody you can tell is not used to that kind of money. They're going to blow it in the first, 6 months, and a year from now, they're going to be broke on the street, And it's like, is he happy he's got that money? Yeah, and I'm sure for the next 6 months, he'll be excited. He'll be buying a new car and a house and living great, and he'll have that short-term happiness. But because he doesn't know how to manage his money, I think that's where he's gonna long term probably not be so happy.
Right.
Versus somebody that says, I worked, for 20 years, I had a good job, I put money away, and now I'm ready to retire, and now I have money to relax and have that kind of happiness knowing that I have financial freedom in a sense.
Yeah, certainly. So it's almost like that's almost a good argument for me, right? On the no side, right? Where if you're not managing that money properly, if you don't know what to do with it, or how to create more money out of it, or create longevity out of that money, it's going to be gone, right? And there are a lot of people out there that it's like, what would I do if I had $1 million? $1 million, to your point, with all of the between taxes and however you acquired it, right? It's going to go really, really quick. And I think it's all about the kind of the foundation or the structure that you come from, your kind of your upbringing. It's like when you get that money, what are you doing with it, right? Are you going to Vegas and doing every possible sin that you could possibly do with it, right? Mm-hmm. Because those are those temporary happinesses that money could bring you, but it's not going to last, right? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to take it, utilize it, and be happy that now you have it in some type of fund that's going to continue to grow, that you're going to be able to leave the next generation, that my kids are going to be able to benefit mm-hmm. from it, right? So when my kids are ready to go to college and they bust their butts and they're able to get into a great college, I don't have to stress about not being able to send them there, right? Mm-hmm. Because now I can afford to do it, right? Now I have a plan for them. That brings me happiness as an individual, right? Knowing that I have that security, right? Knowing that going into next year, I'm not nervous about it, right? Mm-hmm. I can plan the family Easter camping trip without wondering, am I going to have enough money to do it, right? Yeah. I can get prepared for the family vacation during the holidays because now, money isn't, I'm not worried about, hey, can I even pay my bill, mm-hmm. right? Those are the things that, I think that that bring happiness, and that typically people, when they think of money, that's what they're really gravitating towards, right? There's always the extremes of, if I had $1 million, oh man, I would have, the smoking hot girlfriends and, mm-hmm. rotate them every single month and all this stuff, right? But those people, I can guarantee you, are not going to be happy, mm-hmm. right? Those type of riches, definitely not going to bring you happiness. I don't know.
So are you saying that money brings you happiness, or it does not bring you happiness?
It depends on the type of person that you are, right, and what you do with that money. If you're using it, if you have the understanding of how to leverage it to provide a better life for the people around you, right? You're using it in a way that is more giving, right, and with intention versus those temporary satisfactions. Then yes, it's going to bring you happiness. Mm-hmm. But if you're one of those guys who's going to hop on the first first flight to Vegas or wherever, right, and you're going to explore every single pleasure that you've ever wanted to explore, you're going to find that happiness is going to expire really quick.
But I think the mechanism behind both of those scenarios is money. Mm-hmm. So obviously money is bringing them happiness, even if it's short-lived or if it's a long-term, right? Mm-hmm. So I wasn't sure if you were saying that yes, it makes you happy, or no, because you were playing devil's advocate. So I just wanted to find out where you stand on that. I'm sorry.
So I guess that brings almost a second question in, right? Well, what is happiness to you, right?
You have to define what happiness is, right? For some people, it may be, like you said, a short-lived moment, right? For others, it may be something like you described also, the long-term plan to be able to see my family see through it, right? And mm-hmm. that's what we strive for, I think, here in America, is that we're kind of programmed to think that money is what brings our life, our survival. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard not to do. Just think about it. If we didn't pay any of our bills, we had no money as a mechanism, to be able to get stuff. And I mean, where would it be? What kind of society would we be? I think we strive for everything. I mean, even from our homes, our shelter, we have to pay mm-hmm. to stay there, regardless if it's paid for or not. You still have to pay for food. You have to pay for this, pay for that. So there's always this constant effort to try to get money mm-hmm. to be able to have that peace of mind. And I don't know if the peace of mind is happiness. Mm-hmm. Is that what happiness is? I think for me, it is, because it doesn't bring me stress. Right. In a very stressful situation, I know that I'm not happy, because I'm out there trying to hustle to try to make sure that my family, myself, can get food for the next day. Now, you imagine the folks that are out there homelessness, you ask them, what is happiness to you? Is it, and some may say, well, I'm happy that I don't have to worry about people chasing me, people doing this, but truthfully, I mean, if they had their choice, I'm sure they would want to have those trips to Vegas, right? And those short-lived moments. I think anybody would. And but at the end of the day,
No, honey, not me, honey, not babe, not me. Just, I'm not one of those guys.
Yeah, and you said rotate a girlfriend every day. Don't forget, there may be people that might consider boyfriends. What have you? There's a different type.
I think I struck a chord with Jose here. He seems to be gravitating towards that scenario.
No, I'm just saying that money in general, I think, can mean happiness. I'm sorry, can mean a variety of things, a variety of different of emotions, right? Because
you're saying, we talk about what is happiness? Is it, when I think of happiness, and you talk about coming to America, right? It's the American dream. What is that, right? It's that fairy tale of happily ever after, right? They lived happily ever after, and I think that's what we're seeking, right? And what does that mean? They lived happily ever after. It means they had a prosperous life for the remaining of time, right? For the remaining of their time here on earth, or whatever their legacy was, the kids that they left behind, that's living happily ever after, right? And I mean, shoot, man, if you go to Vegas and you die out there, I guess that was your happily ever after, right? But for the majority of people, right? For the majority of people who are out here chasing the American dream, trying to create something, trying to create kind of a legacy for themselves, leaving their children something. I think where people like that are in it for the long haul, right? And so they may explore those options and take a weekend away, but when they get back, it's like, okay, now reality sets in, right? We've all been on vacation. We're like, hey, we're leaving work behind. We go, and on the way home, we're stressed, right? We're looking at the emails; they're starting to come through, and we're like, shoot, we missed a whole lot, right? I gotta play catch up, and that's kind of how I see that situation being. It's you have the temporary happiness, but when you come back, now you're super stressed out, right? My dad always say, the most successful people are the people who are out there playing golf during the week and don't have any stress about what's happening at the office, right? Because they've created a system, they put things in place to where they can be out on the golf course and not have to worry about their business collapsing down here, right? Mm-hmm. So I always kind of use that as kind of a gauge of, hey, should I be out here golfing right now? Because I have files burning down or whatever the case may be. So ultimately, we're trying to set ourselves up for comfort. And not just temporary comfort, but long-term lasting comfort, right? And so if money is going to bring you happiness, how are you structuring that money to give you that happiness, to relieve you from the stresses of bills, financial stresses, to relieve you from those things? Because yes, money can do all of that. And when you're not worried about paying your bills, there's a whole weight of relief that's off of your shoulders, right?
So is that happiness or is that stress? What do you think, Roy?
I mean, I look at it that, money can be bad in the sense of complacency, and it's generational too. I mean, everything you've talked about is today, if I had the money, and it's great. Yeah, like you said, like, okay, I can send my kids to college. But if you have too much money, if you have that, we've done really well and I have a lot of this money in the bank, what happens to your children? Well, they decide, I don't really got to work.
Right.
And they decide, well, I can live off of dad's interest for the rest of my life, and then they have kids who see, well, mom and dad didn't go to work. They just lived off their interest for their whole life. And then you get this sense of complacency. Now, 2-3 generations down the road, they're broke again.
Right.
Because they've never had that sense of drive of what money is really there to do. Like you have to work, and I think that's where sometimes that there's that misunderstanding about money, like, oh, we work so hard, all we want is more and more and more. And it's like, no, I mean, it's a sense of I'm happy. I like working. I like the fact that I can go to work, make more money, provide for my children. But at the same time, I worry. I don't want to have this sense of, well, we're so bountiful that, guys, don't worry. You can have everything you want, and you don't have to go to school, and you don't have to go to work. Because, again, now I'm thinking, what's their life going to be like? Well, they're not going to have that motivation to see what money is really doing. It's that drive, it's that motivation, it's being part of society, having a little bit extra to give away. It's not just about the house and about the car I want and about everything I. It's Okay, well, how are we helping out? We have a church that needs money for building a new church. If we won the lottery, how many people are going to give money to build that new church? Probably nobody. They're gonna say they are,
Right.
but are they really? And that's the kind of thing where I see generational is money. It does bring that happiness if you can make your children and their children understand it's not the happiness because of the stuff, it's the happiness because I feel we're not stressed out like a lot of people about, like you said, like, okay, we can't pay the rent tomorrow. We can't buy food for breakfast tomorrow. Like it's that kind of thing that brings the happiness.
So again, I'm just trying to define happiness, and based on the conversation that I'm hearing from both of you, it seems like happiness again is a peace of mind that you don't have to worry or stress out, right? Because I think happiness may be an artificial term, right? I mean, we see it in movies, we see it here. Like you said, it's the fairy tale that says everything is good, but truthfully, in the world that we live in, that isn't the case, and more people are finding themselves in a constant battle to just get right over that line where you have that peace of mind. And unfortunately, they're not meeting that. So therefore,
but is it designed that way, though, Jose? Is it designed because if we were all complacent and happy, nobody would be making my coffee this morning?
I totally agree with that. But what I'm trying to get at is that sense of happiness is becoming far, far, far away from the person. There's more people, and you said a generation. So how long does a period of happiness last in any civilization? And if we go back again, I love history because this is why happiness deteriorates, is because, hey, only this bit of people are having happiness, but this bit of people the majority of the people aren't. So there's something that happens that changes a balance of that, right? And then we start over again. And I'm thinking that we're starting to see that more with folks here is, what is happiness, right? And money and happiness, we tie those two together. And I think happiness, again, that artificial term that says it's an emotion that makes me feel good for that moment, right? Can you have that sense of emotion for a long period of time? Can you prolong period of time? I don't know. I mean, for me, it's just a constant struggle to make sure that, again, my wheels are always turning, making sure, hey, how do I go and get the next dollar so that I can make sure that, one, my mortgage is paid, two, I have money in the bank and I can buy food, and I can make sure that my kids are in good shape. And I try to give them those moments of happiness, but it's not all the time. It's like when we get together, go out, I'm sure they have those moments of happiness, but I think it's more peace of mind that they're not having a struggle. There's other families that do strive for that.
Well, but it also brings to the point is now we're saying more money is more happiness, but is being poor mean that these people are just completely sad all the time? And I don't think that's true. I mean, I think again they make best of what they have.
Well, are you associating poor with sad? Because happiness is one thing. If we talk sad,
well, if we're saying the more dollars I have equals the more happiness I have, I would probably in that sense say no, but.
Because there's poor people that could be happy because they're, like you said, they may reach a point where I can't speak for anyone because I grew up poor, and was I happy when I was poor? When I'm seeing somebody else have things that I don't have, I mean, there's something there. I mean, obviously it does something to your psyche that says, well, shoot, I wish I had that. Yeah. Why is it that I can't fly like that? Why is it that I can't be at these remote places or these exotic places? Right? Well, again, I don't have that money. Right? So I don't know what that feeling is because I don't have it, but there is an opportunity to strive for it. And that's what I think I do is I try to spin my wheels to try to get to that place, but is it really happiness or is it more ambitious?
Yeah, that's why it's a good question. And, and that's why I stuttered around answering it in the very beginning, because naturally I wanted to say, yes, money does bring happiness, right? And, when I think of just today, right, I'm a super romantic husband when I have extra money, right? I'm sending the bouquet of flowers, right, spontaneously, right? I'm doing things like that.
Get on my phone real quick.
You're sending text messages to your wife saying, hey, let's go have a nice dinner this evening, right? And you're able to do those things that typically. At the end of any failed marriage, right, or anybody going through some type of troubles, right, it's we never do anything, right? Never takes me out, never he's not romantic. All of a sudden, Mr. Sancho comes in and does all those things, right, and it really puts into perspective. Well, I wasn't paying attention enough, or whatever, and it can go both ways certainly, but. But it's very difficult to do all those romantic things when you're worried about just paying the bills, right? Or you're worried about, hey, I need this next paycheck to come so I can, fill up my fridge with groceries, right? Those are the things that make me want to say, yes, money bring happiness. Because if I can do that, if I can buy my kids the newest basketball shoes every time they come out, they're going to be happy and I'm going to be the cool dad, all those things, right? But in reality, it is what is the foundation of happiness? Where do you what makes you happy? Some of my fondest moments are growing up as a kid, and probably large part due to when you're a kid you have no responsibilities and you're not worried about all the stuff that the grown-ups are. But all I remember as a kid is being in these 1,000-square-foot homes or smaller, which was grandma and grandpa's houses, each of them equal in size. Loaded with about 40 people in there, right? And a Christmas tree loaded with presents underneath, right? And they weren't the video games and all, these elaborate gifts, but it was something, right? And we each, would stay up we'd all stay up till midnight. We'd have a big, just tables full of food that everybody would bring, home cooked, meals from, everybody's favorite dishes that they made, right? And so when you think about that environment, right? We weren't in a big giant mansion. We weren't out in Cabo for the Christmas vacation, where the traditional person's going to say that's happiness, right? Well, no, for me this is happiness. 800-square-foot home, about 40 people in there, packed in there like sardines, a bunch of presents, wrapping paper everywhere, playing with your little cars that you got. That's beautiful. That's happiness, right? Being all together within that environment, that was that happiness for me. And it didn't stem from a whole lot of money, although it did take some money, right? Because to acquire all of those things. So that's where I say, okay, well, happiness is all relative. And no, I don't think the more dollars you have, the happier you are. But I think that if you do have some dollars, you can have more pockets of, it could certainly help you with being more romantic or more spontaneous and have the ability to do those type of things.
So what I'm getting is that there's levels of happiness, right? There's little happiness, big happiness,
long-term.
and long-term happiness,
long-term.
right? So now, and back to your point, you're right, because when I was a kid, that's exactly what brought us happiness, is not having responsibility, being around family, and not worrying about, who had what, and we were just kids having fun, right? And that was family. That was happiness, and you can define happiness in that fashion. And others, like you said earlier, may have $2 million from the lottery, and they may be happy for that moment in time when they have it. But, sometimes and statistics show that a lot of these folks that probably win the lottery don't have a way of managing, and they just spiral out of control with that. And sometimes ends up being worse because, money is very sneaky, and it's if you don't keep an eye on it, you don't manage it correctly, it can get under you, and a lot of times end up in divorce because that money just drives you. It's crazy, and again, I don't know if that's a level of happiness or not.
I think there's 2 levels of happiness, like not 3. I think there's short-term and long-term.
Short-term and long-term.
I don't think there's big, little. I think there's just short-term and long-term. Well, go for it.
No, I was going to say they're just different. I think there's different levels. I don't think there's a 1 button and a 2 button up here. I think it's you can measure that, a gauge that may say, the level of happiness may be here. It depends, right? Because I don't know. I mean, short term.
Well, short term for me is for you, if you're used to fine dining, right? Short term happiness might be this A5 Japanese Wagyu steak right in front of you right now, right? And that the level of happiness that's going to bring you short term is going to be equal to, you say, an alcoholic homeless individual giving them a bottle of Carlo Rossi on a cold night, right? They're going to savor that as much as you savored it. Doesn't mean they're less happy than you because you have yours was more expensive or yours was more elaborate. That happiness is equally short-term for both of you guys, or equal as far as size or magnitude for each of you from each of your perspectives, but it's short-term for both of you because each of you guys are going to digest whatever it is that you guys eaten, and boom, it's gone. For me, my Christmas that I outlined, that's long-term happiness. Why? Because it gave us traditions long-term that we still carry out to this day, right? We still pack houses with everybody, and it's like, just come over, right? just come over and let's celebrate it. And nobody's, nobody's nervous that their house is too small because we've come from, being packed in a little, small house. And so that right there establishes that longevity within that happiness, right? Those foundations that event or that, those traditions carry on, right? So it's either short term or it's long term. Now, for me, that long term happiness is that. For somebody else, they might say, well, every year we go to Cancun, right? It doesn't mean while they're over there, they're more happier than I am while I'm with my family. So the levels of happiness is all based off of perspective, but we become immune to everything that we do, right? And so, the super elite billionaires, man, I wonder what makes them happy at this point. They've experienced everything, right? And
Maybe not the long-term Christmas tradition that you've experienced, but they've experienced something totally outside of what we probably experienced because we don't have that mechanism to get us to that point, right? I mean, I think overall it's the same in our brains. We have the same emotions that they do, right?
Right.
And it's just levels of it, right? You're experiencing a high level of this particular neurotransmitter, something that just sparks happiness and what have you. And that can happen with someone that, like you said, you give him a bottle of Carl Rossi that's out there, he's going to experience the same happiness that someone that is in a yacht experiencing the ocean from a window there that nobody else would because they don't have the access to that. But I mean, I think that's where I think different levels of happiness do.
And day 10 after experiencing the yacht with beautiful happy, like at what point? How do you top that? At what point? I mean, and that's
the
where
moon. You go to the moon.
You go to the moon, right? That's where that like chasing happiness it starts to dilute. And when I see money being money and being rich, I'm going to do everything I want, right? Eventually, you start to desensitize yourself to those finer things, right? And it just becomes no big deal, right? I've never been on a private jet. Right? I'd love to be on a private jet. Well, you got celebrities who that's their daily commute, right? On a private jet. So it's no longer satisfying to be on a private jet.
I was going to say, is that happiness or is that just routine?
Well, I mean, I look at it, and I think this is why we're struggling with our service clubs. I mean, we're all part of service clubs. And I think that's where, for me, the drive to be a part of a service club is because I find the happiness in the work that in the help I can provide to other people, and those people are endless. With a service club, like, okay, if I help this person, okay, they're going to go off and somebody's going to replace it. So there's always going to be that continuing, replenishing of happiness because I'm always helping this person or somebody else. Yeah. But I think because, again, people are just, everything you've talked about is all self-centered. You got, we've all talked about you being on the yacht and you having the steak and it's, it's this, again, back to the me society. That service clubs are suffering because nobody sees the benefit of helping somebody else anymore. Nobody's getting the happiness of helping other people like we should. Now, it still requires money because even as a service club, if we're providing a meal or we're providing a service, the club has to have financials. We have to get financials from somebody else. But at the end of the day, it's, when we cooked burgers for the robotics team, we weren't going like, I didn't make any money off of that. It's the happy faces and the help that we provided, and we felt good about it. And then we can go back next month and say, I want to do that again.
Right.
I want to help the next person. And that's where I think we're kind of losing some of that. What brings us happiness? It's not just the money or the stuff. It's we're being Grinches. We're not helping the person, next to us. It's all about the me, and that's all I care about. And and giving the gift is great, but is it really helping that person too?
I like your point. The question though was, does money bring you happiness? And I think if the question was, what brings you happiness? I think we can certainly find, to your point, that giving sometimes, or again, spending time with family, but all that really evolves around the money.
But does it? I mean, I can go mow my neighbor's yard. It doesn't. I didn't have to spend money for that. I could pay the gardener to go do it.
But somebody has to pay for the fuel. Somebody has to pay for whatever the things. Look, I totally get it. But
what brings you more happiness? To spend the money or to do it yourself?
To your point, I do believe that the more we serve our communities, the more we give back, it does give us a sense of pride and a sense of happiness, and that could be part of the long-term happiness that you talked about, because you feel like you're accomplished. Like, I'm not doing it to satisfy me, like you said, self-centered, but there's this gratifying effect of assisting others and with your time, and not having to really brag about it. You do it because that's just a sense of who you are, right?
Correct.
But able to do that, and in order to do that, I do feel that most of the people that are on these service clubs have some sense of peace of mind that have put them there to be able to do that. And there's others that are willing to help that probably don't have anything. So again, to the question is, does money bring you happiness? And after the discussion, you start thinking about it and you say, well, shoot, I don't know that I feel that happy anymore.
But even the question is self-centered. Does it bring you happiness?
Yeah.
See,
yeah. No.
Does my money bring the happiness to everybody else around me?
Like I said earlier, I think money brings me peace of mind.
Yeah.
And peace of mind may equate to happiness for some. I mean, at least for me, that's kind of what I feel. But again, going back to what makes me happy, I like what he said earlier, because I grew up in the same environment. Being around family makes me happy. Right, being around these areas that bring me these memories of just in my childhood, and being around my family brings me happiness.
Does having too much money bring you something else? Like, are you worried about your money? I mean, look at these rich people; they have to surround themselves now with security, and they're constantly worried about being attacked. And,
I'm not there yet, Rohi. I'm not there yet. But I think that is a good point, because I think a lot of folks do. I mean, look, even with celebrities, for crying out loud, they have their own entourage of people. They know that they're celebrities for a reason, and people want to, just for some reason, they gravitate to these celebrities. I mean, does that make them happy to go out there? I mean, at the beginning, I think because they feel like the sense of, wow, I made it. But after a while, it's constant routine. Hey, these guys are bugging me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's what I see when high-fiving there. You can't do it for everybody, because now you're a megastar. You're a celebrity. I mean, are you happy if you're having surrounded by security, surrounded by, you're pretty much enclosed in your own little box.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking of the guy with $2 million, is that he thinks he's going to be happy until everybody else realizes he's got $2 million. And now his constant fear of, okay, somebody's out to get me constantly, and that, I'm sure if he's not thinking about that already, he should be, because again, you go back to these lottery winners, they always get murdered or killed or something by people find out they got money. And I mean, that would be my fear, is like, okay, crap, now that everybody I'm looking at knows I got $2 million, who's going to be the first one to try and rob me or, do something like that. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I like what Roy said about finding outlets to bring others happiness, right? And but also to your point earlier about church. Everybody says, oh yeah, I would build a nice big church, but will you, right? Yeah. If you had an extra $100 right now, are you going to go buy a homeless guy a meal? Probably not, right? If you had an extra $100, what would you do with that money? Probably something for yourself, right? Well, I'm gonna go buy myself a nice shirt. I'm gonna go buy myself, whatever, right? And so, so that's where service clubs. It is great. It is super fulfilling. Yes, we're with the Madera Evening Lions. We're trying to generate money so that we can provide support.
We didn't say names of the service clubs.
I went ahead and plugged mine. I went ahead and plugged mine in there. We meet twice a week. But we generate these funds. We have to generate money, right, to help people, right? And these people are recipients of the money, so it is helping them, right? But as a service club, it's not just writing a check. That's the part that we enjoy and gives us gratification. It's all of the hours, the man hours that we put in generating that money, right? Because there are plenty of organizations where it's like, hey, your fees are due, once a month, write your $5,000 check and boom, we'll disperse it out, right? Obviously that would be much easier, but that's not a position that any of us in the club are financially capable of doing, right? We all have a small sense of comfort knowing that, we can break away for these meetings in the evening times or whatever the case may be. We have that luxury of a little bit of extra time and flexibility within our work schedules, stuff like that. But by no means are we able to generate the type of funds that we could just by all pitching in, right? So it requires man hours where we're out there literally barbecuing, cooking, cleaning, just working a snack bar, doing the labor intensive work in order to generate these monies so that we can do that, right?
But let me ask you this. Imagine that your club or a club in general had enough money in the bank and their whole was just to live off the interest from that money. So basically, if you had enough money, enough interest that you could do what you want as a service club, so you don't have to raise the money.
Right.
Do you think it would still bring the same happiness being part of that club?
And that's what I was trying to get to. Yeah, it would not, right? The satisfaction comes from, rolling up your sleeves, shoulder to shoulder on a line, cooking with your people, the stress that it brings, because it is stressful. It is work, right? Pomegranate Festival out there for almost 8 hours, and you're cooking, it's hot, there's orders coming in, and it's like, sheesh, man, I'm out, this is a lot of work. But when you understand the mission, when you understand, all the people that are going to benefit from you just standing there cooking and working a little bit, it's gratifying. There's some gratification there. And again, that's where it's like, I'd rather not, it's not so satisfying, telling up my change at the Panda Express and to donate to Valley Children's, right? But it is if we're running a 5K and all proceeds go towards Valley Children's, right? There's a little bit more sense of there's a whole lot more involvement, and there's a little bit more sense of ownership of that initiative or of that project. And I think that's where that comes into place. But I don't know, guys. We're kind of going around, and it sounds almost like you guys are starting to lean to the no, money doesn't bring happiness.
Well, we're trying to figure out, and I think we're dissecting happiness. But now we've identified that gratification equals happiness, right? We've identified that peace of mind equals happiness, and we've identified that even memories equals happiness. So coming back to what happiness is it's an emotion. It's an emotion that makes us feel special, makes us feel happy, right? The word happy. But I go back to like how we get there, right? And how do we get to be happy? People, what's their strive to try to get happy, right? And again, it's always that peace of mind that, hey, I can do this. I know I can do this. There's folks out there that, frankly, I don't know. I mean, they don't worry about the money. Abel and I both work in the lending service, right? And there is this sense of gratification when we finish and complete a closing because we've made somebody feel that. Making someone feel that same happiness, or what we call that gratifying moment of saying, shoot, I've accomplished this. That is for us, at least for me, Abel, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but I feel like I've accomplished something. Do I get paid for that? Yes. That's secondary, indirectly, because the moment that person, they put their whole life in my hands to try to get them to that goal that's trying to be a homeowner. And that's big, that's huge. So for me, it's stressful at the beginning, but there's a strive for me to get there. And once I get to the end of the line, I have that sense of gratification, that pleasure of, I made it happen for them. Yeah. And I feel good about that. And that's kind of back to your points on those service clubs. I think that's why we fundraise. That's why we do certain things to try to help. In my case, I think we get paid also, which helps me, at least my peace of mind, that I'm able to put food on my table. My kids can have certain things that I may have not had when I was a kid. But it's that emotion of just feeling secure. And maybe that word, again, security. Yeah. Security for me is happiness. Security,
well, that's the problem we struggle with. I mean, with our kids around Christmas is that, when we ask them what do you want for Christmas, it's always a toy. Especially at their age, it's a toy. And then we look at it, we know the toy, the happiness, 5 more minutes until they open the next present, and then it's the next toy. And we juggle with that because then we become the Grinch and we tell everyone, look, don't buy my kids toys. Right. They got a closet full of them. They don't play with them. But it's trying to instill in them, to my kids, a sense of happiness that they're only happy because of the opening of the gift act. You can break that one gift into 10 gifts, and they would be just as happy as opening that one gift. You know? And that's the part again I don't like the fact of saying money brings happiness. I really don't. I mean, I know it does. We've agreed that the more money it brings. But I don't like it because again, I feel like it puts in your kids this sense of like, consumerism, like I have to buy my happiness. I have to buy my happiness. instead of just being happy. Like understanding that we are provided for, we have what we need. If we needed it, we would do what we need to get it. But at this moment, I don't look at my life and say like, I'm sad. I don't have that right now, and that's kind of where I juggle with. Does it bring me happiness to have money? Yes, but I don't want that need to have more money because now I'm not happy now. So
my grandma told me was telling us the other day, wrapping gifts and whatever at my mom's, and she goes, "Man, I remember as a kid, we would get one present, and we knew that it was going to be a new set of pajamas, right? But we were so happy and excited to get that new pair of pajamas. We'd open our gifts and tear it open, look at the pajamas, couldn't wait to go put them on, and we would just enjoy that, right? And that was that genuine happiness. And so that's to your point. You go to a birthday party today and there's 30 gifts, on the table. The first couple to get, oh, and then after a while it's, oh, thank you.
Sure, yeah.
And it's just, an assembly line. It's just, next present, next present, next present. And that's where that, I think that's where earlier I had used the word desensitized, right? We become desensitized to the value of these items, right? The value of the steak, the value of the Carlo Rossi bottle, and to the gifts, right? And we want more and more and more and more. And so we soon become our level of our expectation for what happiness is for us starts to get so far that we never find it, right? And then you do find these, trust fund babies that, didn't work for it, didn't put time into it, don't understand the value of it, and they fall on their faces, right? Because everything's just easy for them, right? I'm going to butcher this saying, but, it's something along the lines of like, difficult times create strong men. Strong men create easy times, but easy times create weak men, right? And so it's this revolving where you talk about generations, becoming the easier you're making it for the next generation, you're potentially weakening their ability to gain and prosper down the future.
So let me throw a curveball at you guys, right? Because we talked about happiness, but on the other side of the spectrum, there's sadness, right? And sadness, of course, what do we associate
That's
that
more
with?
of a change up.
Yeah,
Not a curveball.
and it's from going from this side of happiness to sadness. I mean, what is it that the money wise? Does money also bring sadness?
I think it can. Going to Christmas, I think when the kid doesn't get the present he wanted, I think that's where it hurts as a parent because you're like, I gave you a present, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
But
I
is
spent
but
money.
it's probably temporary sadness, right?
I mean,
don't know.
well, let's look at it this way. Look, and this was one thing that I look at, right? So happiness, who experiences the most and who doesn't experience it, right? Let's just say you grew up in a very poor, and I'm not going to say humble yet because there's poor, humble folks that are very happy. But then you have poor folks that are having a hard time trying to get their kids to school. And kids then get to see that, hey, they have the nicest shoes, they have the nicest clothes, I don't. Why am I here? And that starts that mental illness issue early on in life because they're starting to see the haves and not have-nots. And could that be a rise of what's happening today, is that we're seeing a big level of poverty that leads to a lot of the mental illnesses that we have today. Can you tie and correlate those together, that not having happiness can potentially equate to maybe a mental illness? And I hate to bring that in there as a curveball. That's why I want to throw that a curveball. But I mean, there is happiness, and on the other end is sadness, right? And money could be involved in both, but it seems like that's the economic engine or the mechanism that can provide us, again, security, peace of mind, and those everlasting moments that for some reason, we all strive for. I go back to what you said because that's exactly my life. My childhood was exactly that. But there's also been my family that, and several of them that don't try to get the money. Their thing is, look, every week we do something with my family. Every week they do something, the little party, little get together. And some of us become reserved, like, I'm second, I don't want to go there no more. I'm tired of being out there. But you see them consistently just being there, part of a family, and just that, for them, all the stresses that they endure throughout the week, they come together, and it's that sense of just being together that brings them that happiness. Very humble. They don't have to have a lot of money, but that gives them a sense of happiness. The other part of it is sadness. I mean, is having too much money, can that bring you sadness? Because you no longer can experience the same things because you've skipped, like you said, going back to those positions of weakness because now you've had it all. You don't strive for it no more. So you're looking for the next thing that's going to bring you happiness. It's like a drug, right?
Yeah.
I think, if we were to, we almost have a little math problem going on here, right? And I think if we say, what is happiness? It's, our equation equals happiness, right? And a very easy equation, though, it's either plus or minus monies. A plus or minus money equals happiness, right? And depending on what you're adding or subtracting from money, I think could dictate that happiness level, right? But and this is where I'm going to say, no, money on its own doesn't equal happiness. You need to add or subtract something to that, right? You either need to subtract greed away from the money, right, in order to find that true happiness, or you need to add, kind of a level of responsibility or a plan to that money to truly gain happiness, right? And when we're talking about happiness, I'm talking about the live happily ever after, not the temporary, right? And even on that temporary, that equation might work sometimes, right? But I think for the most part, we can all agree that what the happiness means to us, and it sounds like it's a very long-term play, not so short-term, but you either got a plus or minus something with money in order for it to equal happiness. Alone, I'm gonna say no.
Yeah. Well, that's I had an economics teacher who would always use the term utils. So because we keep saying happiness versus sadness, and he would recognize that basically if you looked at something, you would always get a certain amount of utils, meaning that it's basically getting to the root of if I spend money, there's going to be a certain level of happiness. And he was using that to show how, we make decisions economically. Basically, if I have to spend $5 and I get 1 util from drinking this cup of coffee, but if I can spend $5 and get 3 utils from, getting something else, we're going to naturally gravitate to the thing that gives us the most happiness. And it was just a driving factor to quit saying the word happiness, because we knew that the act of spending the money was naturally going to give us happiness. It's just, was it going to give us 1 or was it going to give us 100? And again, he was just trying to show us that's how we as people, at least here in the U.S., that's how we basically economically make decisions. It's what for that amount of money is going to give me the most happiness? But he would just, again, call it utils because it was just an easy where instead of saying happiness for sadness, it was just recognizing the fact that as you spend, it goes up.
I've been doing that all month long with Christmas gifts for my kids, right? I can't afford to buy everything they want, but you start to, decipher what type of utils, how many more utils are they going to get from this, right? Yeah. Is it, if I buy them this pair of shoes and, this is how much it costs, they're only going to last 2-3 months because he's growing like crazy, right? Or I can get him this that's going to last, a couple years at least, right? And so you start to decipher that, but then, I like that. Utils.
Utils, it's the way.
And, I have to agree with that. I think that if we look at it, we're going to look at it in an economic sense, is that in this world, especially here, I think that's kind of the way it is. I visited my family, my father's family in Mexico, and their happiness was making sure, again, it was making sure that they had food, but more importantly, for them, it was they were farmers, right? So they were farmers in rural areas of Mexico, and when they would get together, they would come together as a family. And again, sometimes it wasn't enough. Hence why a lot of them left that rural area to pursue what was others were pursuing, because there was people coming back to the town that were migrating and bringing these dollars that brought somehow happiness to them, because it brought a plow, it brought a machinery to be able to help them raise the harvesting a lot faster, to help them, use less human effort, right? So a lot of times that brought peace of mind, that brought happiness. And I think that was instilled in me because when my dad was here and we were born here and gone to school here, we were looking at those same. He brought that same traditional value system to our household, and it was always, you have to try to gain that peace of mind. But overall, when we were together, that brought a sense of happiness. And today, my happiness is when I can take my family to those small little restaurants, nothing fancy. I have a cup of coffee, and we can sit there and have a conversation.
Yeah.
That's happiness to me, because that moment right there, it's short-lived. It's only like 45 minutes, but it's some of the most happiest moments that I get, being able to share that whatever happened throughout the week with my family and listening to my kids.
Yeah.
Other than that, attention is lost somewhere else. I'm on the phone, I'm on the computer, I'm my work. There's things that we have, but that 45 minutes there, I think, bring a sense of happiness to me that, hey, this is what I want to have at the end of the day. And it's unfortunate because it's only 45 minutes. I wish I had it all day, but we strive for those moments. That's why I think happiness comes and goes throughout the day, depending on your environment.
And that's why, like, I go back to his explanation of Udall's, is that it's like when you look at happiness versus sadness, it's an expectation. It's saying that I expected 3 Udall's from this cup of coffee, but I only got 2, so now I'm sad. But if I only expected 3, and like you're saying, and I got 10, I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm extremely happy. That's, I think, where you get to that long term, because like you're saying is, you're kind of expecting, oh, we're going to go have our dinner and I'm going to get a certain amount, but then you get more out of it. And that's the happiness factor.
And that's where I think I can go back to what you said is, money at that moment, money at that moment doesn't equate to this high of happiness. It's the moment that I'm in at the time. Now one can argue, well, what got you to that moment? What got you to? I mean, it's going to take money, right? And that's where you get that argument.
Well, or you know, what got you to that diner, right?
That's right.
It wasn't money that got you, you know, gave you the courage to go talk to your wife and introduce yourself and meet her and all that stuff, right?
Well,
You know, so the money is kind of the cherry on top. At the end, you know, you could pay your bill, but what, you know, if you only had money the entire time, you'd be sitting there in that diner by yourself.
And that's why I like Abel. Abel always brings it back to where, you know, we have to be inclusive of our partners, inclusive of our, you know, our other halves, our significant others, obviously, right? And that's going to be our wives, because it's true. A lot of that is because of that. And that's why we're happy, and that's why we're here, right? Obviously, we're having this show to try to define happiness.
So let me ask you, as the question states, does money bring happiness, right?
If it's a yes or no,
Yes or no?
I have to lean to yes, but there is degrees of happiness, like I tried to explain earlier.
Yeah, I will still stick with my yes. In general, money still brings happiness. Yes.
And I'm going to say no, since I believe that money needs to be in combination with something. You can't solely have money and have happiness.
And I think that's what kind of brings balance to our show, is that we don't always have to agree on every single topic, right? I appreciate your point, although we may disagree. And my thing was, again, on security, on just feeling that peace of mind and other factors that I brought in there. But I appreciate your point of view, because I wouldn't have known that. I thought you were yes, money brings happiness. I would have never known that.
Well, and like I said, the money does, you know, bring a nice steak in front of you, and that's that temporary happiness. And I do enjoy those things, you know, and I do have times where, man, I wish I could be, you know, a little bit more romantic. And I brought up that portion of it, right? You're able to send the bouquet of flowers. You're able to do things because of money, right? But if you only have money, you can't do all this. I wouldn't have a wife to send those flowers to. You know, I wouldn't have people to enjoy that meal with, you know. So that's why for me, I'm sticking to as it's written, money by itself doesn't bring me happiness. So, all right. Well, that's the weekly jargon there.
It is. And, you know, obviously with these questions, we'd like to hear your comments. I know these questions were posted on our last podcast show, and gave you an opportunity to really suggest if new topics should be brought to the table. So comment and let us know. There's a survey that goes on there. Just look at the My Community page. Is that where it's at?
The community tab of our YouTube channel. That's where it can be found.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for watching, gentlemen. Thank you for showing up to the jargon.
Awesome.
All righty.